Who's standing up for the white working class?
But you're a very foolish person to refuse to listen to a message because you don't like the messenger.
Over time, we have had political prisoners in prison unjustly.
There's no such thing as the far right. The far right is probably 15 people across the 70 million people living on this island.
That's not fair because because it's totally not true.
Hi everybody and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest, the gentleman I've been following now online for a good few years. He first of all started popping up on my timeline maybe 3 years ago. And welcome to the show, it's Danny Vosco.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming along. Let's start with a simple question. You are one of those black racists who hate themselves and hate everybody of colour, and you're one of those people I've been hearing about for 20, 30 years. Is that fair?
That's not fair because because it's totally not true. But for them to push their narrative, they have to alienate those who wish to challenge the narrative, and that's what I've been doing for at least the last 4 years openly since Black Lives Matter came out on the scene. I thought that people were having such a white people who were challenging it was having such a negative impact from comeback from it. I decided I had to bring it from the back of the screen, front and center, and try to challenge what they're doing. But I thought it was going to be an easy transition. But what I didn't realize is the amount of media and the amount of people who wanted me silenced, who wouldn't allow me to come up against the racists on the Black Lives Matter side. And they would be happy to have two white people, someone a pro Black Lives Matter person, and they would get called all sorts. And I'd be like, I could have been there and we could have had that discussion, without one side saying that these people are racist or you're white supremacists or all the other buzzwords they use. But no, sadly, that wasn't the way. But I still continue to, put my activism down that way.
Well, that makes perfect sense. That Black Lives Matter, I thought is an awful organization. You're the wrong type of black person because you're not a supporter of Black Lives Matter. How can the mainstream media have you on a show talking about the negatives of Black Lives Matter when they're pushing the narrative that Black Lives Matter are just wonderful? Everybody agrees with Black Lives Matter apart from a few white racists. So they couldn't have your face having that discussion. It's just part of the arm of the propaganda of the mainstream media that we will only tell you what we want you to know.
Yeah, definitely. But the crazy thing is, if you go into these black communities where, the mainstream media think that I don't ever go or I don't venture into, you'd even the black supremacists, the people who I say are very anti-white, even they wouldn't support Black Lives Matter because, of the white involvement in it. So most people were saying we don't support it anyway. And that's why when you see the marches, it was predominantly, ex-old Marxists who didn't make it in the 60s revolution, in the 70s revolution, and now they're trying to, rejuvenate it now. You didn't really see the true radical black people there. And that's another reason why I thought, I could have my voice to portray that,
The thing I disliked about Black Lives Matter the most, and the reason why I wrote my infamous article that got me cancelled for the charity that I founded, was the one thing they said, which was we need to disrupt the Western nuclear family. And that means basically we need less fathers in the home. And for me, that is the number one problem we're suffering in the West and in this country. It's a lack of fathers in everyone's home, not just black homes, but white homes, all homes. If we don't have strong male role models, how do boys know what it is to be a man? And that was, for me, was the biggest damaging thing Black Lives Matter wanted to do. Hence why I stood up against them.
And it needed to happen because you would have seen the first waves of of integrated Windrush families, the kids who are growing up. You would have seen this, and you would have noticed the decline in the black father in the family, because when they came over, the father came over, he got himself sorted, got a job, and then sent for the family. It was never what we're seeing now. So even you would have seen it and understood, hang on a minute, why that is so important to not push that message out, but you got cancelled for it because they didn't want to listen to the truth. They wanted to push the propaganda.
Yeah, which is a Marxist propaganda. They fund the police, overthrow capitalism, get fathers out the home, reject religion. It's basically a communist manifesto they wanted to implement.
They did, and look where we are now. It's amazing. 2 years, 3, 4 years ago, they wanted to implement that. Then they did the other things that they did, and then now we have that government that, if it all came together, we would have been in a lot worse state now. So you can see in hindsight where they were trying to go and what their plan was for the future. And it's got us right here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll look back in history and we'll actually thank Black Lives Matter, not because of what they wanted to do, but because finally they broke through, and them breaking through in 2020 showed everybody in the West, especially this country, this is what's happening. And then we started rejecting critical race theory, we started rejecting gender ideology, queer theory. We started noticing these things and rejecting it. And I think eventually we'll owe a big thank you to Black Lives Matter. But let's move on to the weekend just gone. There was a big march in London. You were there. What was that about? What went on? And why was that march important?
Well, the march was about predominantly stopping Tommy's isolation. He's in prison on oh, he's on 23-hour bang up, a solitary confinement. That's the one. He's on solitary confinement. So it's about to bring awareness to the injustice of what he's doing. But off the back of that, we've been having for the last year and further as well, because this goes back to Julian Assange. So over time, we have had political prisoners in prison unjustly, and it was to bring it all together to say, if they could do this to such a high, powerful figure like Tommy, imagine what they're doing to everyone else. Obviously, we've had the Peter Lynch incident. Sadly, he couldn't take being in jail for no reason, just for being on a march, and sadly he took his life. So we're bringing all this to the forefront, and we had a march, and it was very successful, and it was important on multiple of reasons why we did it. Number one, to get the message out, to let the government know that we will assemble. We are not scared of having a name like Tommy Robinson and not turning out like it used to be, because we've turned 360 on it. It's a different type of movement. So that was the importance of it. We're not going to allow these political prisoners, we're not going to allow unjust sentences, we're not going to allow all of this going forward. And also, we can do it without Tommy Robinson being there. So when people try to say, like, the Unite the Kingdom movement, it's a Tommy Robinson movement, well, hang on a minute. We did a movement to support what's going on, to show what's going on. But Tommy Robinson wasn't there. He had no involvement in it at all. And it was highly successful. So this, the government should understand and look at and say, well, we're having negative polls after polls after polls. Maybe we need to start looking at the people. And that was the most important thing there. Again, we highlighted the fact that the radical left, the ones that the Labour Party would fund, the Antifas, the stand up to racisms, all this, that the Labour Party and the trade unions have all got this kind of, secret handshake between them all, to show that they are actually the ones who are declining, our society. They are the ones who are being abusive. They are the ones that are the intolerant people. Whereas on our side, where they're trying to make it as we're the intolerants, we're the far right people. We actually came there with love and harmony, and it was a beautiful day.
I think in this country today, there's no such thing as the far right. The far right is probably 15 people across the 70 million people living on this island. There's probably 15 of them who we would agree are far right and nutcases, and probably need dealing with if they cross the line. I'm for law and order. But those marches are not far right. They're not racist. They're not fascists. They're not, Nazis. But that's a label that the left have used against the general populace for decades and decades. It's always worked, but it doesn't work anymore now. I mean, let's talk about Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson is a flawed individual, and that's because he's human, and we're all flawed. None of us are perfect. Just like Mandela isn't perfect, and Gandhi and Dr. King, all flawed individuals. But you're a very foolish person to refuse to listen to a message because you don't like the messenger. Tommy Robinson has been banging on about grooming gangs and other problems for 20 years. And I'm sure he's wrong in some aspects, but I know he's right in many of the aspects. But we shouldn't dismiss his messages because we may not like him or because we've been told not to like him. We should take his messages at face value and look into it. And let's be honest, at this moment in time, Tommy Robinson has been proven right, hasn't he? With the grooming gangs, the covering up, the political involvement. This story now is an international story, and Tommy Robinson has been proven right on many of those things.
100%. Like you said, if you want to discredit what Tommy Robinson does, look into what he's doing, and then say that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, with proof, not just how they like to do it, with proof. But by canceling him and saying that he's this, he's that, you can't say this, you can't watch him, any of that just proves that he is right, and he is getting the message out for people too off the back of it. Like the grooming scandals, he's put it out, he for many years before. And then you had was it Charlie from GB News did a documentary about it, then other people off the back of that. So from him doing what he's doing, people look into it and they can also do it, go their own way, which is what needs to happen. And like you said, when people just try to shut down the message or not listen to it, that's when it becomes a problem, because he's not lying and the truth will come out, like we're seeing now. I saw him in prison, at the beginning of the year, and he was elated by saying everything that I've done, every sentence I've had to do, every hardship my family has had to go through, it's got to hear. And this is a beautiful moment, because worldwide now people are looking into the UK and saying, well, actually, there's a very big problem with the UK, and that's ultimately going to help us going forward. Whether or not the summer government's going to do anything, but outsiders will put pressure on to say, we know what's going on, and we have multiple people, not just Tommy Robinson, hundreds of people who are doing great works in different aspects. All of them will be tapped into, and the message will be stronger than anyone can ever imagine. But had they at the beginning wanted to stop Tommy, they could have addressed the situation. Yes, that you are right, you're correct, we're going to be doing this, but they didn't want to be seen as racist because it was the protected class. They swept it under the carpet, and now we're where we are now.
We are, and it's disgraceful. And everybody in this country needs to take some responsibility for what went on, not because we were involved, but because we were silent. And we've known, the general public have known this has been going on for at least 20 years. It was raised in Parliament 20 years ago. It was in national newspapers 15, a dozen years ago. We've known this for a long time. And the vast majority of people have been silent because they've been too scared to mention anything. And this has only hit the fan now because of Elon Musk, because he bought Twitter and he was brave enough to criticize the British government and what's been going on. And that's the only reason why this is beginning to unravel now. And I want people in jail. We've sent the pedos to jail. Absolutely. More pedos in jail. Fine with that. But that's not good enough. I want chief inspectors. Sorry, I want chief constables. I want politicians and local councils. I want government ministers. If we can prove they covered stuff up and they knew stuff, I want them sacked for incompetence or dereliction of duty. And I want some of them in jail. And this is what I was going to do last year if I'd have won the election and become Mayor of Greater Manchester. I was going to start sacking senior police in Greater Manchester Police if they'd been named in any report for incompetence, for dereliction of duty, for ignoring the plight of these girls. I was going to sack them outright, and then they could take us to court for unfair dismissal, and let's have these conversations in courts.
And that's what it needs. It needs people like you to be able to be strong enough and have the integrity within yourself to say, this is what's going to happen when I get into office, whatever office it is. this is my plan that it's going to happen. Sadly, we're not having it now with a lot of people. They've got into parliament, and a lot of things have changed, but we need more people like you to say, these people will be held accountable. We've put 89-year-old Nazi soldiers in prison, or they have been in court, and their actions have been judged. So everyone who has their hands into hiding what happened to all these hundreds of thousands, probably, of girls, they all need to be, like you said, they need to be exposed, and the serious places, or the highest ones, need to go to prison. It's as simple as that. I'm 100% with you on that.
Yeah. And that's how we stop these atrocities from continuing, because this is still going on today. This grooming and gang rape of girls is happening as we're speaking. It's not stopped. It's just gone more undercover. That's how we stop it. And it's also how we stop future atrocities or state abuse, is by making sure the people who cover things up know eventually the people will have their way and you're going to jail. It's the only way to stop it. I mean, we've had that many examples of this. Have you heard of something called the home children?
No.
No. Well, for 100 years, it ended in the 1970s. For about 100 years, the British government were deporting children from this country who were in orphanages. Weren't necessarily orphans, weren't necessarily unwanted by their parents, but it was easier to not even deport them. They were British, they were white British citizens, to send them to New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and South Africa, where they were used as slave labor, as sexually and physically abused. And it went on for 100 years. 100,000 children we sent away, and we held no one accountable. And then we've got the post office master scandal, where a faulty IT system that everybody high up knew was faulty, and we sent British citizens to jail just so we didn't have to admit it's a faulty IT system. And again, is anyone in jail for that? No. Until we start holding our public officials and our politicians accountable, and I mean really accountable, then these atrocities and these scandals will continue. Because they don't think they work for us. They think they work for each other. And we need to remind them, you work for me. And if I'm angry, you need to be punished. And it just really annoys me, Dan. It just gets to me that they're still treating us like this after hundreds and hundreds of years of progress, hundreds of years of us thinking we're free men living in a free country, and they've still got their foots on our necks.
Exactly, and it does need. I think this can be the turning point going forward. With the country, of having that type of government, or that type of person in a position of power. Because, like you said, the scandals of the past are scandals. The home children, that is, I haven't heard of that, and that is absolute. That is probably the biggest thing that we could do against our own people. The governments are doing that, so if they can do it then, and they're carrying it on, and they're hiding, we don't know what's happening now. So we need a firm hand on all of this. And yeah, that's not going to happen with the parties that we're having at the moment. But political persuasion is changing. It might not go the way that I want, or the way that anyone else wants, or whatever, but at least if our political minds change from the two parties, we can then start getting justice for our people. Because, as you say, it's a crime against humanity what they did with the home children. It's a crime against the British people what they did with the post office. But again, they chose big business. They chose Fujitsu to say, no, we believe you, rather than the postmaster saying, listen, look at the numbers. I've just put it in and it's totally changed itself. And they were prepared to listen to foreign business people, or business people who are not connected, the head office or whatever, not connected here, rather than the people doing it. And that shows that the lack of disrespect of the government to the people. And more people are aware now what power we have, and the more that we can get people to understand that we actually do. It's a cliche, isn't it? We the people, we have the power. But no, actually, we do hold the power. We do hold the power to bring you to justice ultimately, and it will be through voting, and it will be through these protests and rallies. And allowing governments and councillors and councils to say, we're not gonna have it. You listen to us, or we'll just keep doing it, and the momentum will grow. And I think that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're lacking in this country, as statespeople, statesmen and stateswomen, because all we have are career politicians, and career politicians only want to climb that greasy pole. Where a statesman, a stateswoman says, I'm going to do what's right for the country, and I don't care if you hate me for it, and I don't care if you vote me out in the next election, because this is what I believe is good for the country. And those people we don't have anymore. The only person like that we have is Jeremy Corbyn. And I never would vote for the man. I disagree with everything he wants. But at least he was a statesperson. At least he gave us a vision of where he's going to take us and told us what he's going to do and his vision and why he believes in it. And we voted against it. But everybody else seems to be a snake in the grass and will tell you what they think you want to hear and then do the complete opposite. This government's a great example of that. You know, they've only been in government 6 months. They've broken almost every promise they gave us 6 months ago. This government will probably last another 2 years, then it'll be gone. Our hopes are on who comes next. Will it be the Tories again? Will they change in 2 years? I don't think 2 years is enough for them to change. Will Reform manage to get into power? Reform are different. They're not perfect, but they're probably better than Tories and Labour at the moment. Or will it be a Tory Reform coalition? I don't know what's coming next. I just want it to be different. And even if it turns out to be wrong and different, at least it was different because then we change them. And eventually, if we keep kicking out these parties and we keep making them change, eventually we'll get one that serves us, that will be better. But it's going to be, we're still 5 years away from I think the change we need. And looking at Trump in America is going to help us because we're going to start saying over next year, Trump can do that. Why can't we? Trump's kicked out all the illegals. Why can't we? Trump secured his border. Why can't we? Trump had just saved 100 trillion from government waste. Why can't we? Trump has just reduced income tax. Why can't we? Trump has just done this. Trump is drilling for oil. Why can't? And that's going to be the mantra for the next couple of years. The Americans can do it. Why can't we?
Exactly, it's going to be like that, and people are going to have to show their political courage and say, we will do this if we are going to be a political party. But my only concern with the 5 year plan that's going to happen, everyone else is going to be shutting their borders. They're going to be controlling immigration. We're going to see Sweden do radical things. We're going to see all around Europe, and then it's us who are still going to be very much open for the globalist business. And I do really fear that, whilst everyone's shutting down and sorting their own countries out, the only place that all these people are going to come is to here. So the problem we've got today is going to be so different. So a new government will come in and it's going to take most of that term to just try to get us back to where we are now. That's my that's my concern. But we've just got to wait and see and hope, like you say, even if it's the next people or not the one that I want or any people want, because I think that UKIP is going to be a great contender for it, because people have to hear me out. It's because of the total radical shift of it. People will say, well, okay, then we might not see them as this party as blah blah blah, but there needs to be a bulldozer, like you said. There needs to be someone just to, even if it's temporary, to shake it for other people. So I think they're going to, somewhere along the line, they're going to have a bit of a play in the game. But the people who do come, they have to be different. They can't be what Reform is at the moment. These people who are saying one thing to one person, saying one thing. Rupert Lowe, everybody loves Rupert Lowe. He should, in my opinion, be the leader, because A, he doesn't do it for the money. B, he's actually speaking the people's voice. So Nigel's looking at that and then still going down the way that he goes down. We can only assess that he's not going to be for us. He's not going to be that politician. And yeah, we need somebody for that change, not just a change in the baton and then it all goes the same way.
Well, I'm very impressed with Nick Tenconi from UKIP, the leader of UKIP. If you want to talk about a brave, truthful patriot leading a political party, it's him. I think he's a breath of fresh air. The things he's talking about, the fact he's on the front line, his bravery, the way he's outspoken. I think other political leaders could learn a lot from him.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there's a lot of people that says, "Oh, a political leader shouldn't do that." But what I say is, who's standing up for the white working class? Because this is what we've got to tap into. Who's standing up for the white working class in them communities? It's okay for a politician to walk in, say a little speech, and go. But Nick kind of puts himself into the mix, and activism comes out. But the communities will love that because they're like, he's willing to fight with us. And I think that vision will be a big pull to UKIP and Nick. But we need other MPs to be saying, we will come into your communities. Telford, who's been to Telford? Has Nigel been to Telford? Anyone from Reform been to Telford, Rotherham, any of these places to say, to the council, we want to see your books. No one's done it. And that to me just shows, once you're in Parliament, certain people are in Parliament anyway, nothing really happens. And Rupert Lowe, his hands are tied. You don't know what Nigel's saying to him in the background. You don't know what he can or can't do. So all he's doing is bringing as much as what he can up, but more people need to do it.
Yeah. Let's end on the high. On the high for me is I'm full of hope. I think things have changed this last 6 months, 7 months, and the change is speeding up. I think things are going to get slightly worse before they get better, but I can see change coming. I can feel it in the air. We had the rise of reform at the general election. No one thought they were going to win a seat. They won five, got 4 million votes. They've done fairly well since then. The rise of Trump again, everything's changing. The people are rejecting now gender ideology and the trans movement. The green movement's about to collapse now because we're almost having blackouts in this country. That's going to collapse over next year. Things are looking up, but we are going to sink a bit further before we start rising again. And for people watching, we must remember that the people that live on this island, we're an amazing people. We've come through worse before. We've stopped invasions. We've beat the communists in the 1970s. We're an amazing race of people on this island. And it feels bad at the moment, but that's because we're living through it. But the history books will write that this is just a blip in the history of an island race that gave the world everything and modernized the world and created medicines and science. We're going to get through this, but we'll only get through it if everybody on this island wants to get through it. So stop talking this country down, stop talking yourself down, stop looking for excuses about why you do nothing. Be part of the solution and we'll bounce back a lot quicker than we can imagine.
Yeah, I can't say anything against that because that's entirely how I feel. I'm very positive. It might seem negative when I talk or when I'm online. I'm very, very positive with what we are going through. Like you said, this is a blip. We are beginning to bounce back, and the beautiful thing of it is we've got the movement of United Kingdom, which is very special in a way that I don't think people understand because everyone's eyes are opening up for every bit of corruption in this country. And we can't have, one march for here, one march here, one march here. But what we can do every 6 months, every 9 months is have a huge United Kingdom where we all get together. We all come with our flags and our knowledge, and we can network, we can speak with like-minded people, and that there will become the hub that will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what's going to push us forward. This together community, like you say, not talking down the country. Our kids are not being indoctrinated so much because the parents are refusing it. It's a beautiful time. For me as well, as an activist, it's a beautiful time. And the history books will show, that we living in it. Like you said, we're living in it. It's going to be bad at some points, but overall, we are going to be the ones who are making the changes to turn the country back to how it used to be.
Fantastic, Danny. Anything else you've got coming up? Anything you want to plug before we go?
No, I've not got anything at the moment, but it's just we've all got to still be addressing the issues and driving the lies of the government, and just keep doing it every day. And then we've got that, but nothing's coming up. So
No problem. And you're right, we have to do it. We need to stop waiting for someone else to do it on our behalf. We have to do it. Even if we only do a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of it, 70 million people add up a tiny bit. That's a tsunami of change. We need to stop waiting for other people to fix our problems and fix our country for us. We need to be part of the solution.
100%.
Cheers, Danny. Thanks for coming on, and let's catch up again in a few months' time.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye bye.